All signs point to this. This offseason, the Winnipeg Jets have done their best to keep their spot at the top of the league. The former President's Trophy winners are looking to maintain their spot as a true contender for the Cup in 2026. And a new article has just come out from the Bleacher Report where they detail their top 10 teams who are likely to win the Cup in 2026. We're going to dive into this article. We're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets placement on this list and whether or not we agree with it. But before we do hop into the video, it looks like about 80% of people watching the videos here on Jets Digest have not subscribed to the channel. I'd highly suggest you guys throw a subscription. We're getting closer and closer to the next season. More and more news will be dropping for us to talk about here, and a subscription is the best way to make sure you are staying informed. So let's hop into the video. Let's talk about the article that was written in the Bleacher Report by Sarah Civian. And the article, of course, is titled Ranking the Top 10 Contenders for the 2026 Stanley Cup. So yes, this will be a list about the top 10 contenders. And if we hop into the article, the first team we see at the number 10 spot is the Winnipeg Jets. And Sarah Civian goes in here and mentions why she has the Winnipeg Jets listed at this spot and potentially why they aren't higher up on the list. In regards to why they're on the list at this point, she mentions the fact that, the Winnipeg Jets still have a top line in the NHL of Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi. She even mentions the addition of the hometown boy Jonathan Taves making his return to the NHL, as well as Gustav Nyquist as solid additions. And further to that, she mentions the fact that Connor Hellebuyck, of course, being the best goalie in the world, especially in the regular season, is a reason to have some faith in the Winnipeg Jets to at least make it to the playoffs, as well as hopefully, go far in it. And in regards to why they aren't higher on the list, the reason she lists is, she mentions the Florida Panthers, mentions the fact that, if they've taught us anything, that there is value in making the playoffs year after year, even if you don't win at all. And, if you do that and you progress and you make the right roster moves every year, you can go ahead and potentially go ahead and win the Cup. But then she mentions the fact that the Winnipeg Jets have kind of fallen to these same mistakes. They have succumbed to these same patterns, and they have done very little to address the roster inadequacies. And this kind of keeps them listed as a, you can pencil them in as a first or second round exit, but a team that will definitely make it to the playoffs. But again, she mentions the fact that, Connor Hellebuyck's difference between how he plays in the playoffs versus the regular season is also another reason why maybe you shouldn't have faith in them to go too far. Now, let's talk about the placement on this list and if I agree with it. And you know what? I agree with it in general. I think that 10 is a good spot for the Winnipeg Jets because I have faith that they will make the playoffs this year. Despite the fact that I think they will take a bit of a step back, I do think that they will make it to the playoffs. Again, you can have some faith in the fact that Connor Hellebuyck is great. The Winnipeg Jets seem to play very well throughout the regular season. It's usually only the playoffs where they start to have those issues. And now to kind of just poke some holes in why, they aren't further up in this list, we can talk about the top line of Scheifele, Connor, and Vilardi. Now, the reason I bring them up is because I think that having these guys as your top line, while not perfect, is good, but I think that it also is I just think that the construction of the roster, at least on the forward side of things, no matter what, is going to cause problems for the Winnipeg Jets. And this top line is one of the reasons for it. And again, this is not a dig at any one of these players individually. It just has to do with the fact that this line is not a game-breaking line. This line can't go out there and play against every single other team's top line. I wouldn't want to have Scheifele, Connor, and Vilardi playing against, Barkov, Verhaeghe, and, Sam Bennett or Reinhart. I wouldn't want them playing against Mikko Rantanen's line in Dallas. I wouldn't want them playing against Nathan MacKinnon. And the reason for that is, they just aren't a game-breaking line. They aren't going to win that matchup. But the Winnipeg Jets know that, and it's, a big credit to the Winnipeg Jets for realizing this and, making the adjustments that they need to. And, of course, the adjustment that they have there is they play Lowry's line like a second line. And when they're at home, the biggest thing is that Lowry can go out there and suppress the other team's offense. So he can go out there, play against the Nathan MacKinnons of the world, the, Mikko Rantanens of the world, and make sure that they don't play well. Basically their goal is just to go out there, waste the time that they are on the ice, and, try and build up some momentum so that when Scheifele comes on against easier competition, they can make bread. They can farm on those guys. The reason, again, why I think it presents a lot of difficulties for the Jets, we can take a look at this past season's playoff record and separate it into home and away. Of course, when you are at home, you have the luxury of dictating who plays against who. You get the last change. You're able to make sure that Lowry is always going on the ice against the other team's best players, and you can sneak Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde up against the easier matchups, and they can go ahead and, like I said, make hay when the sun don't shine. And regardless, we can take a look here just at the stats between these two, between home and away, and it's a very stark difference, going 6-1 when they are at home, and of course 0-6 when they are away. Very clearly, that top line, I think, has a very big part of it because, again, they don't get the luxury of playing against easier competition, as well as the Jets don't have the luxury of playing Lowry against against opposing teams' top lines. And it unfortunately just doesn't work out. And 50% of your games are going to be on the road. And also, the Jets had the luxury this past season of being the President's Trophy winner, which means they had home ice advantage in any series they would have entered. And unfortunately, it still didn't change anything. They were unable to win games in Dallas. They might have won one game in St. Louis. I don't think they did. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but very clear. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't have won a game in St. Louis. They had 0 wins. Sorry, my bad. But regardless, very clearly this is a bit of an issue. And this next season, I don't think they're definitely not going to be the President's Trophy winning team. I mean, if they are, I'm happy to be wrong there. But they won't have the luxury of always necessarily being the home team, and that will definitely spell some problems for them. Further to that, we can take a look, of course, the other thing she mentions is Connor Hellebuyck. We all know the issues he's had in the playoffs. We can take a look and see the difference of how he plays in the regular season versus the playoffs. Going, 322 wins, 185 losses, and 44 overtime losses. Very clearly a very good goalie in the regular season. Multiple 3 Vezina trophies, 1 a Hart trophy. In general, has a .918 career save percentage, which is great. He is phenomenal. But then when we look at him in the playoffs, he has a record of 24-34, 24-34, my apologies, and a save percentage of 903. My apologies. So very clearly, this is a thing that needs to get figured out. And I also think that the Jets don't do a lot of help for Connor Hellebuyck in the playoffs. Also, I think they don't adapt that well. Whereas, I think that one of the key reasons is that other teams are able to target, the inefficiencies that the Jets have. You heard lots and lots of talk this past playoffs at, if you can make sure that Connor Hellebuyck can't see the puck, he will have a tough time. That is how St. Louis pushed the Jets all the way to 7 games, all the way to to 1.6 seconds left in that last game 7. And that was the thing that they did. They were very, very, focused on getting shots from the point with, screening Connor Hellebuyck. And very clearly that worked out. The Dallas Stars took note of that. They scored a lot of goals by having traffic in front. And so I think the Jets just didn't do enough to help Connor Hellebuyck. So I don't pin this completely on him. But at the same time, you got to ask for more from your goalie. You got to ask for a save. And having him be someone who is, kind of turns into a pumpkin in the playoffs, like it's definitely reason to look at the Jets as potentially not at that contender status, at the top contender status that they may have been in years past. Further to that, we can even talk about the additions of, Jonathan Taves and Gustav Nyquist. Gustav Nyquist, I think, is a totally fine addition. He's 35 years old. He is a bit older, but at the same time, within the past 2 seasons, he was almost a point per game. But at the same time, you can't rely on that considering the fact that, age curves exist. I expect him to just be kind of on the downshoot. But regardless, we can talk a little bit more also about Jonathan Taves, the guy who's come in to finally get our second line center. But, even if you look at him prior to missing 2 seasons, and, the fact that he's 37 years old, even when he was, playing 2 seasons ago, he was already starting to dip in quality. You can see his WAR percentile has gone down from, his heydays of being one of the best players in the league to going down to a mere 38%. And that's fine. That's below average in the league, but I'm a little bit worried about him coming into the league after 2 years of not playing meaningful hockey. And so it's fair to be critical of this until we see what happens. I hope the best. I want the Jets to win, of course. And I hope that Jonathan Taves comes back and it's a great story and he looks like the 2C that we've been looking for years. But at this point, it's fair to be critical of it. And also, further to that point, again, Gustav Nyquist, like I said, mentioned, I think he's fine. It's whatever. He's a fine addition to try and make up for the loss of a player like Nikolai Ehlers. And, the big thing with losing Ehlers this year, despite what you think of him, despite what you think about his value, the Jets are going to be a slower team this year. They are going to have a harder time getting the puck out of their zone because they don't have as many players who can just grab the puck and skate it out with possession and get into the other zone and start, working on the offense. So no matter what, it is fair to put the Winnipeg Jets lower on this list, considering the fact, they've lost a key player. We're still not sure about, Connor Hellebuyck in the playoffs, as well as, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi just aren't the typical top line of, the true contenders in the league at this moment. And I know I've been negative on this video, but if you want some positivity, there are some key young players in the Jets system that could potentially make the team this year, that could potentially make some noise. If you want any more information about that, go check out our most recent video, this one right here. I talk all about the players who could potentially make the roster this year for the Winnipeg Jets, who could make a difference. I would love for a lot of them to make the roster because, like I said, I think that they're going to take a step back. It'd be better to make sure that they get their mistakes out of their way this year so that next year, the season after, the Winnipeg Jets can, retool and make sure that they can, lengthen this window that they have with Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele. But that will be it for me today. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with this placement, if you think the Jets should be higher on this list, if you think the Jets shouldn't even be on this list. If you think that they are barely even going to make playoffs, let me know. I'm curious to know what you guys think. But regardless, this has been Brady on Jets Digest. Have yourself a wonderful summer. I'll be here breaking it all down, and I'll see you guys in the next one.